Hello, this is Dr. Paz, and we are going to go over the Chapter 6 and Chapter 7 of your Great Plains. So prior to watching this video, you will hopefully have completed the questions for Chapter 6 and Chapter 7. So we're going to start with preparing a purchase order, and here you are required to go into Fabricam and prepare a purchase order. And the steps to do that is purchasing, transactions, and purchase order entry. So number 2 is the correct answer. Now we move into receiving goods on the purchase order, and which of the following statements is true concerning recording the receipt of goods on the purchase order? And here we have that number 4 is correct. The accounts payable subsidiary records are updated at the time the receiving transaction entry window is posted. Then moving on to 6-3, when you pay a vendor's outstanding invoice, the series of navigation steps is number 1, purchasing, transactions, and manual payment. And when you pay an employee, what is a unique characteristic of processing payroll in Great Plains? It is that Great Plains uses batch processing where other transactions are processed individually. So make sure you're aware of that for an employee, we use batch processing. Now we move on to the problems and the reports. And so now here you needed to prepare a purchase order for inventory items. I can't stress enough how important it is for you to do these transactions in Fabricam to practice, because remember, once you do them in Fabricam, that's practice and it doesn't really affect your grade. But remember, if you're doing them in Warren Sports Supply, then we definitely will have an issue at that point. If there is something wrong, then you'll have to correct it. So here you see that you have to, enter all this information, and this is pretty much how you prepare a purchase order for your inventory items. So you want to make sure that you have all of the information on the screen to ensure that you know how to do a PO. Then when we receive a good, then you'll see that you have to actually do a little different steps, and then you're showing what was previously invoiced. So make sure that you're aware of that as well. So again, here we are actually preparing a PO, and then here we are receiving the goods from a PO. This will be critical in Warren Sports Supply. So please make sure you do these. Then we receive goods from a purchase order, and then you continue to have the distribution, which is basically your general ledger accounts. And then we move on to paying a vendor's outstanding invoice, which you will have to do for Warren Sports Supply. And then here, note that it's the check, and make sure that you enter the amount as well. And here the currency is also important, so make sure that you're practicing these. Then here as you go, you're going to select the invoice to pay. So that's the key for paying an invoice. And then the last step is the distribution again, and obviously since you're making a payment, cash is credited, and then your discount and your payable. So make sure that you practice this in Fabricam. Then here we have a paying an employee, which we know that we have 3 employees, and now we know that this is done in batch processing. So here you would have the name of the batch, which usually is your last name and the date. And then as we continue through this process, you'll see that you will prepare it in a batch and then go ahead and pay each employee. Okay, so now moving on, answer the following questions to Fabricam, and here you're using lists and how many total February 2017 payable transactions did they have? I show 19, and if you use the purchasing list, payables transaction, and you enter a custom date of 2/1/17 to 2/28/17, and you have to select include historic transactions, and then you'll see the number in the lower right hand corner. Then how would you use Smart List to get the same result? You'd go to Administration, Smart List, Purchasing, and then Payables Transaction with the same dates, 2/1 to 2/28/2017. So practice with those as well. And then we have which 2 cities had the greatest amount of product purchases, and it gives you the hints here to use the vendor list and Smart List. I have Springfield and Chicago, and then you can see the Excel printout here that I pretty much created from the Smart List to see that. So you want to go back into get the Excel, and then you'll see if you go to Administration, Reports, Smart List, Purchases, and the vendor folders, then you can add and delete information, and it should look like this. So make sure that you can grab this information as well. So Springfield and then Chicago are my two highest, and that's probably best done in Excel. And then when we move which states other than Illinois do Fabricam employees reside in, here I have Nebraska and Indiana, and here again I just did a smart list and moved it into Excel, where you have 9 employees that live in Illinois. And then they are not heavily concentrated in one state. So the highest numbers would occur in Nebraska and Indiana. So we see the 2 and we see the 2. So hopefully you're able to create a smart list for this as well. Now moving on to chapter 7. And so we will see here making a credit sale. So here we have Fabricam makes a credit sale to Advanced Paper Company, and the series of steps is sales, transactions, and sales transaction entry. So number 3 is correct. And when we receive goods on a sales return, the following statement is true. The AR subsidiary records are updated at the time the sales transaction entry window is posted. So number 1 is correct. Now we move if you are, excuse me. Now, if you record a payment received on an outstanding AR balance through the cash receipts entry and apply sales documents window, you separately record the bank deposit. So what is the navigation steps to record the bank deposit? And that would be financial, transactions, and bank deposits. And then we move to 7-4, which is if we're writing off an uncollectible account. So there we know that there are 2 methods, right, for uncollectible: direct write-offs and the allowance method. And we know that the allowance method is what is allowed for GAAP. So now if we want to use the allowance method to write off, then the accounts receivable, it does not affect neither net income nor working capital, because we're not directly writing it off. We're writing it off to allowance for doubtful accounts. So number 4 is the correct answer. And now here you want to practice making a credit sale as well. So you want to make sure that you do that and make sure that you have all of the information on this screen. So you might want to pause here and practice this screen. And then as well, you'll have the sales distribution entry, which shows the receivable, the sales, and the commissions as well. So you want to make sure that you do that screen as well. And then when you receive goods on a sales return, so now you've allowed the sales return, now you're getting it back. You also want to make sure that your screen looks like the screen here. So you may want to pause the video again and make sure that you can do that. And then we see the same thing, receiving goods on the sales return with our account distributions here as well. And then we have receiving goods on a sales return, our last step, which would be to apply it to the particular invoice. So make sure you understand how to do this, because that way this will again help you when we're working with Warren Sport Supply. So now we want to collect an outstanding accounts receivable balance. So here we would show it as a payment, and then we would select the customer information, and then we would actually select the invoice that is being paid. And then lastly, we get, again, the check that it was paid with. So here and then make sure you have the checkbook ID as well in this screen. So again, practice collecting an outstanding AR balance. And then here we have a transaction number 4, whereas we're writing off an uncollectible account, and we know from our SUA that we have one of these items. So here we would go ahead and start with the receivables transaction as a credit memo. And then we would move to show the customer that we're trying to write off and the invoice that we're trying to write off. So let's make sure that we get this correct as well. So make sure that you practice writing off an uncollectible AR balance. And now we're going on to the problem. So you want to print a list of accounts receivable, and here you want to use administration reports and the smart list. So you want to make sure that the column buttons is to add your states, and then you want to search to find any of the customers with a balance of greater than $30,000, and you want to use the column button again to remove any columns that you don't want in your printout. You want to export this to Excel, then you want to sort the database on the state column in ascending order, and then you can use the sum function in Excel. And hopefully you'll get something like this, that you'll see all of the balances within $30,000. So hopefully you can do a smart list and export that into Excel to get the information that you need. And then here you want to prepare the information requested. And in this case, you're going to also do smart list customer folders, and you're going to do the same things. You're going to try to get the add and delete the columns that you need, like customer number, customer name, and the balance and the state. And then you want to restrict the state to Illinois, and the balance you want to restrict to right under $2,000. And you want to make sure that you clear out any search parameters each time you run a new search. So you want to make sure you export it, and then you'll see here that you'll have Illinois, and then you'll have Wisconsin. So make sure that you can actually do this as well in Fabricam, so you're very familiar when you need to do this for Warren Sports Supply. And then lastly, it gives you that we also need a smart list for the customer folders. You want to use the columns to delete and add. Again, you need customer name, you need total sales year to date, total discounts year to date, and then the percentage of the discounts taken. And once you export that into Excel, you're going to calculate the percentage of the discount taken. So when you do that, this is your calculated field in Excel. So make sure that you do that, which would be your discount divided by your total sales year to date, and then you'll see that. And as you go through, you'll see there's quite a few zeros, so there are no discounts. And then how successful is Fabricam's discount policy? Only 5 customers took advantage when I did this. So you'll see right here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you'll see that. And that is it. So you've made it to the end. Thanks for watching.